Good morning and welcome to the Core Connection. I'm Mira Rubin here with you on Enlightened World Network. And today's topic is awareness as a catalyst to change. And I think it's so interesting, just the power of being aware of something, how we will change our response or change our behavior in response to just that simple awareness. Good morning, Rosalind. Welcome. So good to have you here with us this morning, and welcome to everybody else who's joining us. So we're talking about awareness as a catalyst to change. But before we get started, let's take a couple minutes to get present. So let's take a deep breath in through your nose and hold it. And imagine clean, crisp oxygen flooding your lungs, flowing into your bloodstream, nourishing all your cells, all your organs, bringing vital life energy to your body and being. And as you exhale any tension, stress, negativity, fatigue. And now let's take another deep breath in through your nose and hold it. And this time, imagine brilliant, bright light lighting you up from the inside out, illuminating, electrifying, and energizing all your cells, your molecules, your electrons, creating a brilliant beam of light and energy from your heart out into the world. And as you exhale any remaining tension, stress, negativity, fatigue. And now let's press our palms together and vigorously rub your hands together. Feel the friction, the pressure, the temperature, all that motion, and the tickling and tingling when you stop, and allow all those sensations to bring you present right here, right now, into this remarkable physical form that enables you to experience life. Welcome, welcome, welcome. So, awareness shifting our behaviors. So, this conversation is coming up from an introduction that someone made to me to an app called Noom, Noom. And it's a behavior modification app for weight loss and health, I guess. I'm just learning more about it, but it's fascinating to me because just recently I put on a few pounds and I wanted to get rid of them and get myself healthier. And so everybody I spoke to who was familiar with this app had good things to say about it. So I figured I'd check it out. There's a 7-day free trial. And if you're interested, I can, you don't need me to refer you, but I could refer you and then you get 2 weeks free or something, or something like that. Anyway, it's very, very interesting because you have the opportunity to be tracking all different kinds of things. There's no pronouncements, there's no diet, there's no constraint about what you can and cannot eat. It's just providing you with information. So you can track what you eat and the calories that you're consuming. You can track the amount of water that you drink, the amount of exercise that you get, and there's education that comes along with it. So education and awareness, or education equals awareness too, right? So it's so interesting because what happens as I'm evaluating this, what I'm seeing is the dynamic that that it's bringing our awareness conscious. So around eating, a lot of us have our a lot of unconscious behaviors, or if we're not tracking it, we're not aware of the impact or the potential impact of our choices. And so tracking the behavior, we get to make more conscious and deliberate choices, which is really, really interesting. So just having the willingness to pay attention. And interestingly, this is very much the same as another program that I've been reading about relating to money, is by tracking where you spend your money, every penny, just like tracking everything you put in your mouth, then different choices get made. It's not that anybody's saying don't do this or do that. It's that you, in the face of awareness, make different choices. And so this is a really, really super powerful thing to be aware of in terms of shifting our behaviors around pretty much anything. So when we track these things, it up levels our ability to make conscious and deliberate choices. And we move out of the automatic into a place of active engagement, which is really what choice is about. So much of our lives. Good morning, Bernadette. Wonderful to have you here with us this morning. We're talking about awareness as a catalyst for change. And it's without a prescription, so like with this Noom thing, you create a goal for yourself. You connect to what your intention is. I'm going to say intention rather than goal, right? But you connect to your why. What's the motivator for getting to that goal? So that you really have a compelling reason to be taking the action that you're, or to be engaged in the I don't want to say pursuit, because it's not really, but in the fulfillment of that intention. So, and then it kind of gets broken down and you get some recommendations, but they're just recommendations. And then you get to observe yourself is really what it's all about. So Bernadette says that goal has to come with commitment and passion for many. I agree, Bernadette. So interestingly, in this app called Noom, and it costs money, by the way. There's a 7-day trial that you can get very inexpensively, but then it costs money. They ask you, what's your why? What's your compelling reason for embarking on this journey? Are you trying to get ready for an event? So Bernadette says, oh, that's the food one. Well, it's more than food. It's a whole behavior modification thing for weight loss and health management, I guess. But it allows you to track your meals and your calories, and I've never been a calorie counter. And your activity and the amount of water that you drink. And I'm not sure if it tracks sleep as well, but I'm still exploring it. But they have educational things that they push to you on a daily basis. And there's a gamification part of it where you get rewards if you do these different things that are part of the program. And when you get a certain number of rewards, I guess it unlocks different things, so it's very, very interesting. And the reason that it was introduced to me what, or the way it was introduced to me was by a friend who was talking about this approach as a very potentially powerful vehicle for developing community and also social responsibility. So they were looking at, well, how does this thing work? And could it be applied to shifting community relationships? It's pretty brilliant insight, right? So I thought, okay, got to check this out. And I'm fascinated to see myself becoming actually engaged with it. Frankly, I'm kind of surprised because I was a little bit ambivalent about how engaged, whether I was really interested in doing this, but I'm finding myself curious. So curiosity is such a powerful tool, right? Powerful tool for transformation. So I'm really curious to be paying attention and to see how this thing works. And also what I'm noticing is that there's a motivation growing in me that hadn't been there before, which is fascinating. So Rosalind says, awareness of our thoughts. These core connections are a guide for engaging a variety of modes of thought. Observing self happens when there is no pressure from judgment. The choice to change just happens, I find, right? Isn't that crazy? First of all, thank you for the acknowledgement for the value of these conversations. I so appreciate that. And also, when we allow ourselves to notice, we don't have to do anything overtly. We just sort of make choices to change, which is so fascinating. So when there's no pressure from judgment, the choice to change just happens, I find. Thank you for these morning musings. You're so welcome, Rosalind. And I, it's so fascinating to me because that's actually the core connection process itself, is by bringing how it works is by bringing awareness to what's going on. And just by virtue of that awareness, then there's an allowing for things to shift, because I think inherently we want to make better choices, but oftentimes the way that we approach our desire to change or make better choices, oftentimes it's accompanied kind of with a whip and from a punishing kind of point of view, rather than from simple awareness. Because when we bring ourselves into consciousness out of automatic, when we bring ourselves into consciousness, then we're engaged in a very different way with our experience. It's like, oh, is that the choice I want to make? And it's really interesting. We come into a place of choice, and when we're in a place of choice, we're observing our process. We're engaged in our process from a different perspective, from a perspective of awareness. I guess it's because we can tend to be very robotic in so much of what we do, right? So much of our behaviors are routine. But maybe you're somebody who gets up in the morning and the first thing you do is find your way to the coffee maker and make the coffee and start the day that way. Or maybe you hop out of bed and make the bed, or maybe you get yourself out of bed into the gym. But oftentimes these things are programmed, like we're not really alive to those choices that we're making, and they're not active active choices. So just bringing awareness, it's so powerful, it's so remarkable. So when somebody says, did you know that you do this, that, or the other thing, all of a sudden you now are aware of, oh wow, okay, I just did that. And then you see it again, and then you might see it again, and then you might look at, well, what is it that triggered that? And then you can see, oh, okay, so I have this conversation going on in my head, and maybe I get to change that conversation. We don't get to change the conversation unless we're aware of it, right? Once we're aware of it, then we can tune in and say, oh, you know what? I don't really have to pay attention to that conversation. Or we can modify it. We can have an impact on it by being aware of it. But oftentimes those internal conversations just play, and we are at the effect of them rather than being aware of them. And so Bernadette says, do you find there's a difference in commitment if you're a morning person opposed to a night owl? I don't know about that, Bernadette. I don't know why there would be a difference in commitment. I think that there's different, we all have different ways of being. It's interesting because last night, I guess I got to bed by 9 o'clock. I woke up at midnight. I was up till 2. And Bernadette says accessibility. I don't know. In the middle of the night, I was finding out interesting things. I learned about another program that sounded really interesting. While I wasn't sleeping, I figured, okay, well, I'll check out some things, and so it felt like it was somewhat productive time for me in the middle of the night. So I don't know. I think, and I woke up today kind of feeling more motivated than I've been, which is really surprising. And the other thing that's super surprising is that there's motivation that I haven't had for a while to take care of some other stuff. So I got up earlier than usual to be doing some cleanup around my place with the express intention of doing some cleanup. So interestingly, that this focus on bringing the food stuff and exercise and water and all of this, bringing this stuff to awareness, had or is having, at least at this moment, I don't know if it'll sustain or not, but it's fascinating to me that it has this effect of empowerment. Like there's a sense of empowerment to not be at the effect of something that felt kind of out of control around the weight or what was going on with my body, but to find this access point that has given me a sense of empowerment that seems, and motivation that seems to be extending into other areas, which is not a side effect that I had anticipated. It's really interesting. So when we bring awareness to something, it can bring that experience of empowerment to it. Because why? Maybe because we're consciously engaged. Maybe because we are at a place where we're engaging the choice muscle, so to speak, where we're waking up to our ability to choose things, to choose our perspective, to choose our behavior. When we're faced with the choices that we make and we see those choices, we also can say, oh, there might be other choices available. And in a very natural way, without having to judge ourselves, but just to, that was such a fascinating thing too, is when people would tell me about this program, they would say, there's no judgment, there's no diet, there's no telling you how you should be doing it. There's, it's not, it's loose in that you can kind of take it as far as you want to take it. You can, it's not, I don't experience the sense of overwhelm, like as somebody who historically has had all kinds of issues around food. I mean, years and years and years ago, I don't think I joined, but I almost joined Overeaters Anonymous, and I always had issues around weight and body image and all of that. And it's so interesting to see the space of non-judgment. One of the things that they ask about is, what are the triggers? What triggers you to eat, and how are you eating? Are you eating consciously? Are you eating voraciously? Are you eating to soothe yourself? To just become conscious of the different patterns. And I think we get to look at the same kind of patterns when it comes to money. Where are we spending money? Are we spending money? Are we doing the retail therapy kind of thing? Are we trying to fill some kind of gap where we're filling it with things that we probably don't need? When we become aware, just the awareness itself is such a profoundly powerful tool. And to go back to the core connection work, that's really what we do, is to practice awareness with non-judgment and allowing. Like, you don't have to do anything different. You just become aware and things change. And that's how I'm recognizing this thing with Noom and this other money thing, where you become conscious of what your behaviors are. Then it's kind of an effortless decision to behave differently. It's not like there's no guilt or shame. So Bernadette says, I could eat a cow. It's family and the barn they live in. Restrictions make me feel starved. Well, then this is a really cool thing, because there's no restrictions. There's no restrictions at all. It's all awareness. It's all, just you track what you eat. And if you want, I mean, there are all different levels that you can be engaged in this thing. My surprise is that I'm engaging on more levels than I anticipated I would. That I'm interested in tracking what I'm eating, and I'm interested all of a sudden in tracking how much water I drink and how much exercise I get. I mean, you don't have to do any of it. I mean, you can just read the education stuff, or, you can play at whatever level. So it's really, really interesting to see that, like, I'm not one that works well with restrictions. As soon as you put a restraint on me, I'm up against that restraint, fighting it, or, like when I try to constrain myself, and then I just go the opposite direction. I just react to it. So that doesn't really work for me. But Bernadette says, my restrictions are temporary due to meds and heart issues. Got you, Bernadette. So there might be even within the restrictions, there might be new areas of freedoms to be able to explore too. One of the things that I've noticed is that constraint can be a really positive tool for expansion. It was really interesting. I was talking to somebody about what their bucket list was. What would they want to do if they could do anything? And they said, a blank canvas is just really intimidating. What do you do with a blank canvas? And that's when we have unlimited choices. That can be really, really daunting, because there's no container, there's no context. And so I was saying, well, when you have a blank canvas, sometimes you just want to scribble on it a little so that you can get past that, and then things emerge, or you make some rules for yourself. And if the rules are loose enough, they give you a container, but you get to expand within that container. I always discovered that Bernadette says, making me insane, the restrictions. So maybe look at the areas where you don't have the restrictions, like how you can expand within that. So years ago, I remember with all different diets, actually, I've tried all different things. One was macrobiotics, and it was a very different context for eating than I had any familiarity with. And there were lots of constraints, and I learned so much. I learned about all kinds of new foods that I didn't know anything about. I learned about all different ways to prepare foods that I never knew anything about. And it was because I had that restriction. Same thing with raw foods. I learned all different kinds of ways to be preparing raw foods, and discovered foods that I had never heard of. So within constraint, there is also limitless potential. And we often focus on the limitations rather than the possibilities and the opportunities that are made visible when we dig in to explore what's available to us. It's easy to be focused on the restriction rather than the expansiveness, but it's there. The expansiveness is there. Anyway, that's it for today. As always, I so appreciate being with you and engaging in these conversations. And I invite you to bring awareness to your activities, your behaviors, the things that you're saying to yourself, the ways that the choices that you're making, like become conscious to it. So Rosalind says, with understanding, barriers dissolve. I so agree. And with that, I'm Mira Rubin. This is the Core Connection. I go live here on the Enlightened World Network Facebook page and YouTube channel each weekday morning at 9 a.m. Eastern. And I invite you to check out the other awesome programming on Enlightened World Network and Enlightened World Living. And until next time, so much love to you.